This is Kasian, and it's time for our weekly conference call at VectorspaceAI. We'll start with what's happening around the world. There has been a global ransomware attack, and Kevin Mitnick commented on this. We posted a video on our social media outlets related to this, and this is the largest ransomware attack that has happened so far, and of course this fits under the theme of cybersecurity. Sunday, July 11th, Virgin Galactic is launching. We'll be paying close attention to that, along with the rest of the world. BTC is trading in a range from 32,900, a very tight range right now. There's been a little retrace, and ETH is with a little retrace as well at 2,100, and the Dow is flat at 34.2. On the industry side, there's been a breakthrough in nanowire technology. A nanowire network was produced that mimics the brain, which could inspire a new design in AI. That was released at singularityhub.com. And then the WE Forum has a report stating that AI projects are improving cancer screening and their outcomes. And Microsoft is a big part of this. Microsoft is, and I quote, Microsoft is using machine learning and natural language processing to help the world's leading oncologists figure out the most effective, individualized cancer treatment for their patients. An innovation named Inner Eye is pairing with ML and computer vision to give radiologists a more detailed understanding of how their patients' tumors are progressing. It is being used by Aidan Brooks Hospital in Cambridge, and that is to develop AI models that use the hospital's own data to automatically highlight tumors and healthy organs on patients' scans. Continuing, BC Cancer and Microsoft Canada are collaborating on single-cell genomics. This is within the same article, which will enable medical professionals to view the genome of single-cell cancerous cells. This level of detail will enable targeted and specific combinations of treatments for individuals and allow oncologists to predict how individual cells within a patient's tumor will respond to chemotherapy. So as you can see, this speaks all about precision medicine, personalized medicine, which of course connects to space biosciences. And that is a good segue into another industry breakthrough related to CRISPR being used in experiments in space successfully. You can look up the keyword CRISPR and space, and you'll find plenty of articles related to the recent breakthrough. Under themes and events, obviously cybersecurity and ransomware attacks. We actually produced a few baskets related to that on our Thematic Baskets channel, and we'll be observing their performance. Again, under themes and events, we've got China as a player in terms of reducing the amount of play that Didi, the Chinese ride-sharing company, is experiencing. China has put their foot down on Didi, and that's resulted in a significant retrace in their stock price as a traditional market stock. This also meant that there was a basket that could have been created related to this and related to Chinese stocks, and in fact running the risk right now of delisting on U.S. exchanges. So baskets of Chinese stocks would be short baskets. And then of course Alzheimer's breakthroughs continue, and good news has been published once again by Biogen, symbol BIIB. So tracking any thematic baskets related to Alzheimer's will continue to do well. And of course, anything related to space. There was a recent article in the Financial Times describing the opportunities that investment funds are looking for when it comes to positioning in space ETFs and any companies involved in the new space race. On the engineering, product, QA, and ops side, We are integrating, or preparing to integrate, Raf Podowski's code. As you may know, Raf Podowski is serving as our Chief Scientific Officer and has been for years. And his specialty, of course, is in the bioinformatics area and related to infectious disease, macrophages, and so forth. And the experimental code that we've planned to integrate is, of course, an advancement over what we have today. So that's good news. And then, of course, Morningstar. Morningstar has taken the lead in terms of the attention that we give to a partner, and that's because they are acting quickly. We've already got their API up and running, and we're testing it right now, testing the integration. And they are providing us with crypto data, crypto pricing data, which is something that S&P has not been able to do yet for us. So we are looking to Morningstar to do that, in addition to tick data and time and sales and order book data. So we're attempting to gear up as well for retail thematic basket offerings through Morningstar. We'll be updating the public more on that as we get more details. First, we need to, of course, make sure that we are fully integrated in terms of data being given to us by Morningstar. And then moving on to S&P, and we're still under engineering here. We are fully integrated in terms of what we need from S&P, and we are now testing the automation of ingesting data from S&P. And we are also waiting to hear back from their Dataset group, which reached out to us a couple of weeks ago, and we are still waiting to hear back from them in terms of a time that we'll meet to discuss Dataset showcasing on S&P. And then, under Space Biosciences, we are establishing a bioinformatics lab. We mentioned this previously, and we are making progress here. Progress is defined by how we are planning to generate hypotheses, how we're planning to extract hypotheses to be tested experimentally. And that pretty much guides your the design and development of a bioinformatics lab. Of course, goals being within Space Biosciences related to the brain, ECM, extracellular matrix, and microenvironment, and exosomes and so forth. That also guides the design process for a bioinformatics lab. And of course, that remains under engineering, product, QA, and ops, as it's largely an engineering effort. And we are continuing our transition to Azure Space. We'll have more on that in our supplemental engineering call that we'll post along with this call. Under customers, partners, and collaborators, back to Morningstar. We intend to meet with their group that will be discussing, showcasing our data sets, not just on the institutional side, but for the retail side as well. So that'll be pretty exciting for us. That's the kind of road ramp up and distribution channel that we'd be looking for in terms of retail offerings. And of course, S&P on the customers, partners, and collaborators side, that's still in process. FactSet, still in process. And University College London, we are finalizing our partnership and collaboration with them. We've passed the due diligence process, so now it's just a matter of dotting the I's and crossing the T's and making sure that funding is directed where it should be and commercialization efforts are directed where they should be, along with attribution and accreditation in terms of what we contribute. And that would be co-authoring and so forth on public peer-reviewed published papers. And of course, Azure Space, that's still in process. We're waiting to hear back from a time slot in terms of how we discuss our rollout with them. And it's pretty busy. The entire space industry is busy. There are a lot of eyes that are going to be on what's happening this Sunday. All other partners, funds, asset management companies are in process right now. And that leads to corporate development, business development, sales, and marketing. And we are preparing for incoming from Morningstar. And that will be as fast as Morningstar can move at this point. And we guarantee you that they'll be moving about at least 10 times faster than S&P. And then, of course, we've got FactSet. On the exchanges side, that is in process. And on the IR, PR, and Marcom side, we've got PRs in the pipeline. We want to make sure that we inform the public of recent SAB member additions. Those are Scientific Advisory Board member additions, in addition to our change over to the U.S. in terms of jurisdiction. Next, we'll move on to questions from the trader base. Question 1, what is the real partnership with PubMed and NIH? I'm a medical person. It is a simple academic question rather than a commercial question. Well, we have been collaborating with PubMed before it was named PubMed. It was named Medline. And this has been for years. This is kind of where we got started a long time ago. In bioinformatics was taking, at the time, 14 million PubMed abstracts, and just the abstracts, and processing them for relationships that we could create between genes, proteins, and drugs and diseases. Fast forward to today, we've got 2 crawling systems in place where we extract 1,500 peer-reviewed published papers every 24 hours from the National Library of Medicine / PubMed. We have another system that extracts 4,000 papers every 24 hours. That's one that Raf Badowski actually built. And in the one that Raf built, he actually built a subcomponent that enables all the retractions that take place in scientific literature to be factored. Most people, when they process scientific literature, they won't accommodate or at least factor changes to the literature body that they're operating on. And changes are defined by retractions. There's a large number of retractions that occur every 24 hours with scientific papers. And we are factoring those. So that's something that we do that's fairly unique. So our partnership with PubMed is ongoing. They provide a lot of data. They are the world's #1 data source for biomedical literature. And that, of course, includes all of life sciences, biosciences, space biosciences, pharmacology, everything. Question 2. With the current expansion and the fact that revenue is still below the burn rate, are there any plans to secure funding through any of the traditional channels? Oh, absolutely. We've mentioned this before, and we do have an equity arm, and we will be pursuing equity deals, meaning raising capital based on an exchange of equity for that capital. And some of the groups we'll be talking to in the future would be Andreessen Horowitz, for example. Question 3, on the last call, you said government agencies have asked you to move the company to the U.S. quickly. Is that referring to the DOE and DOD? The answer is yes, and that relates to space biosciences contracts and grants. Not just from the DOE or the DOD, but from the NIH, the NSF, and NASA. Question 4, does Kasian believe that the repairing of human DNA tissue for deep space travel can be done before we make robots AI that have the same capabilities as humans, if not more? Yes, it absolutely will be done way before that time. We are nowhere near artificial general intelligence, or AGI as they call it. One of the reasons for that, well, there are many reasons, but the 2 reasons that stand out to us, of course, relate to the fact that humans have yet to come up with a definition of intelligence. We don't fully understand why humans are intelligent, or what it is that makes us fully intelligent, or how it is that intelligence comes to be. And of course, the other reason relates to the possibility, the likelihood that machine intelligence will be a lot different than human intelligence. So the solutions that we create will be from us, humans. We won't be relying on machines anytime soon. to create those kinds of solutions, only to augment. Question 5, will VXV work with Shiba Inu team, and will the VXV price target be like a leash token or X fund token? And can 9,000 for the VXV be expected in the near future? All right, so I'll just summarize this question to when is the token price going to go up, and that's not something that we discuss. We are concerned, number one, with achieving consequential revenue, and number two, maintaining the value that we establish in this company and the value that is associated to the datasets. No value within the datasets, no value within anything else for that matter. And the value that we create as a team, that value gets identified by any group in the world, and that's going to be happening on a very regular basis. Not just with multi-trillion-dollar companies or multi-billion-dollar partners that are publicly traded, but with smaller partners as well. So we will work with any group that quickens the pace to consequential revenue. That's the short answer. Question 6. Is the space tourism idea just something to get people on board with space exploration? I suppose the real big money is in resource extraction. That's why these billionaires are interested in it, but I don't see a big market for space tourism that will remain a niche for many years. What do you think? Well, we are not in it for space tourism, and we are not doing what we're doing to extract resources from space, although there are probably more than $1 trillion asteroid sitting out there. If you do a search for $1 trillion asteroid, you can easily find a few articles related to an asteroid that's been found to be worth trillions out there, and it's going to be mined at some point in time. Probes are going to be sent to it, and then eventually humans, and that's where we come in. Anytime humans want to go into space, and whether it's mine asteroids or establish a moon base or go to Mars, Space Biosciences will be right there to protect and repair human DNA with tissue regeneration while inhibiting cancerous cells. So space tourism is that is a sideshow to Space Biosciences. And the reason that people are engaging in exploration, this is what humans have always done. They've crossed the seas to travel to other lands, and this is what we're doing in space. And the reason is not just for money. Humans have an innate desire to explore. For us, it is about solutions that come from Space Biosciences that can be applied here on Earth, on the ground. These are medical solutions related to personalized or precision medicine, DNA repair, all kinds of things. Question 7, I have considerable investment in VXV, but don't know much about it and would love to learn how you think about the valuation of Vectorspace as a company. Understandably, if it is confidential and you cannot answer directly, I would love to know the points you consider or literature you can point me to and learn to read up more. Is there a hard line drawn between the valuation of VXV tokens pegged to the utility of VXV services and total company valuation of Vectorspace? And in parentheses, it says, say a Vectorspace share price, for example, with Vectorspace share price being in quotes. How do you determine the market value of the VectorspaceAI organization? For example, more context. If, say, A16Z, that's Andreessen Horowitz, wants to acquire 5% of Vectorspace, does that mean they purchase 5% of the VXV circulating supply, or 5% of the VXV shares, voting rights, when IPO happens, or a bit of both? Microsoft's valuation does not take into account the dollar value of the Azure credits that customers hold. However, unlike cloud credits, VXV has a limited supply and is a trading vehicle, which is unique, unless it is something like if Microsoft only printed 50,000 Azure credits. and floated it in the ERC20 marketplace. Long question, hope you get the crux of it. Well, first off, you're not going to find a calculation that will tell you exactly how much VXV is worth. VXV's worth is connected directly to the value of the datasets. As a public trading vehicle, people are free to speculate, and that would mean VXV's value is driven by market demand. And when we say demand, we certainly don't mean the standard definition of supply and demand, because that's not why trading vehicles move. That's not how they move. Trading vehicles move based on perceived supply and perceived demand. There's no such thing as efficient market theory, especially in crypto. So pricing related to a utility token, that's going to be directly connected to the value of the utility that token offers. And our token offers a very unique and powerful utility, and that's related to dataset provenance, dataset lineage, dataset governance, and most importantly, dataset security. You want to know where changes have been made, who has made those changes to your dataset, when, why, how, what, where, everything related to any change in the calculations or in the algorithm or the way the data was handled. And then, of course, access to datasets related to tiered service offerings that are provided related to customized high-value datasets. And the VXV tokens in a wallet will provide access to various tiered levels of services. So the value that we create as a company gets translated to our trading vehicle. That's just the way that it works. And of course, when you look at the way deals are done, every deal is different. There's no playbook for a deal. Deals can be structured in a variety of creative ways. So it's not that 5% equals this many tokens or that much equity. That depends on the negotiation of the entire deal. And if you're inside of one of these negotiations, you begin to realize that the deal is based on projected value and perceived value and real value at the same time. Revenue projections, 10 times earnings, run rates, all of those things need to be factored. Most importantly, the team. Is the team united? Can they execute? Do they have a track record of execution? These kinds of things factor into the deal. And there's a million other things that factor into the deal. And we know how to navigate all of it. It's another reason why you just don't learn this stuff when you're getting your MBA or CFA or whatever it is in business school. They can't teach you this. You only learn it when you actually are founding a company and at the table when deals are done. Question 8, is there a way to research the tokenomics more that goes beyond the website and white paper? I'd be interested in learning what exactly the utility is for and how it's used for rebuying the dataset usage. Any help? Well, that was just explained earlier, and you can always go to our main document repository, spacebiosciences.medium.com. There's lots of doc there. You've got to spend the time doing your due diligence, and you will find that we describe the tokenomics very clearly in terms of dataset provenance, as mentioned before, and access to datasets. Question 9. If a hedge fund asks Vectorspace to incorporate their data into a dataset, how quickly would Vectorspace iterate this? Well, again, going back to how two deals are done, no two deals are the same. And this includes when you're integrating proprietary data. Proprietary data is stored in a variety of formats, and half the time it's corrupt. Half the time you have to clean it. Well, most of the time you have to make sure that it's very clean. You have to engage in pre-processing steps. And this includes data wrangling, data massaging, transformation of the data, post-processing, several different pre-processing stages, and this is why we are able to extract intelligence from data, from human language, because we're familiar with these multiple stages of transformations that you need to take the data through, and each proprietary data source is different. So in terms of a hard timeline, usually it would take 2 weeks. In some cases, if there are more customizations or more data sources being added, it will take longer. Question 10 was numeri explored for business connections. It seems they can benefit from what Vectorspace is providing for signals. If not considered now, will they be considered if they fit the consequential revenue direction for growth in the future? Well, absolutely. We're open to working with groups that are like numeri, that involve the crowd, and we have to make sure that we are focused on the big money first, because the little money will follow after that. Question 11. If an individual buys datasets using VXV, and if they believe it is valuable insight/information, can they monetize it and sell it on data marketplace, for example, Ocean? The answer to that is yes. Question 12. If a dataset used through VXV led to a discovery or new research development, will Vectorspace get the credit? Will the company get additional profit from the contributions it made to help in the discovery? This is a very good question, because it points to the heart of why we do what we do in space biosciences. And a lot of that, of course, is to commercialize our discoveries. That's just what you do as a for-profit company. And this is going to mean that it's going to start with credit and attribution. Will be cited as a co-author, and that will be in peer-reviewed published papers that are published in reputable journals. After that comes commercialization. And commercialization would include anything from licensing to royalties. Question 13. When complaining about low liquidity, the community is often told to raise their bid by the team, which I think is only fair. On the other hand, we are told that liquidity will organically follow when more deals come to fruition. My question would be, who do you think will provide this liquidity? My understanding is that the team will not, since they want to acquire as much tokens as possible. But at the same time, judging by the low liquidity on both centralized and decentralized exchanges at the moment, I'm not sure that the community is really keen on providing liquidity either. Who would the tokens for this extra liquidity come from? Besides the community and Vectorspace itself, are there other stakeholders that I am not taking into account here? Thanks for answering. This is another very good question, because this relates to the mechanics and dynamics of how organic liquidity happens. When you are wondering why someone isn't selling to you and you have a bid in, you're not going to get your bid hit if there's no market for your bid. The market for Vectorspace, the market for VXV, is not what you see today. The market for VXV obviously is higher than the current bid price that you're offering. When you raise your bid, when you're dealing with an ask and a bid, and you raise your bid, you will find a buyer. That's the way markets work. That's the way order books work. That's the way liquidity and equilibrium work between the bid and the ask. There will be times when you raise your bid and the ask will raise at the same time. And you'll have to chase that ask, as they call it. You don't want to get too involved with chasing the ask, but you want to raise your bid. That's when liquidity happens. You're not going to find much liquidity if Google or Amazon or Apple were trading in single digits, for example. No one wants to sell at those levels. You raise your bid until somebody wants to sell to you, and that creates liquidity. If you raised your bid to double digits, you would get an execution. If you raise your bid, you will find a buyer. That's the way markets work. If you want to sell and no one wants to buy what you sell and you're sitting on the ask, you should lower your asking price, and then you will find a buyer. That's the way markets work. That's the way you trade. When you look at the way the traditional markets trade, this is the way it's been happening for quite some time. And this is what the crypto markets can learn from the traditional markets, is how to actually trade on an order book. You don't market buy. Nobody does that. That's how you lose money. You set a limit order and place your bid. If it does not get hit, you raise that bid. Bots do the same thing in the traditional markets and in crypto markets, especially in the traditional markets, in dark pools, for example. You tick that bid price up until it gets hit, until you find liquidity. You can put a bid in somewhere, and if it's too low, you'll never get it hit, and you'll be sitting there thinking there's no liquidity. There is liquidity. It's simply at higher price levels. That's all. So crypto being passed off as a currency has created massive confusion. We've touched on this before. Massive confusion in the crypto space related to the true definition of liquidity. Crypto is not a currency. Liquidity happens differently between currencies and trading vehicles like stocks, for example. Crypto trades more like a junk bond, a debenture, a commodity, an option, futures contract, and a stock, not a currency. That means you raise your bid. Liquidity, the definition of liquidity has been misconstrued within the crypto marketplace. There have been examples. Maybe some of you remember Aurora coin. This was a coin that was going to be distributed across all of Iceland to everyone in Iceland, and it was to spur or prime the pump so that the currency would be in circulation and act as a currency. Well, it just so happened that had the opposite effect. Everyone sold off their Aurora coin. It became worth zero. So that was based on a massive airdrop, by the way. Treating a crypto like a currency, it makes no sense. And when you look at the way crypto trades, it trades simply, like I said, more like a stock than anything else. So you have to treat it like that. And that includes understanding liquidity, understanding supply and demand, which is perceived supply and perceived demand. Understanding price. What is price discovery? It would be important to look that up. Price discovery on the order book. So you get a much better understanding of liquidity. Market makers understand liquidity and sometimes need inventory to create liquidity. But that doesn't mean they're just selling and dumping it into the market or giving people price points that they're looking for. They're doing it to maintain an orderly market, which is mandated by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. And then some might ask, well, what makes us qualified to comment on the definition of liquidity? Well, we have run order books on many different sides, from being traders to trading news to moving money around in the markets to consulting for hedge funds, related to basket trading, dynamic portfolio insertions. And then, of course, being the CEO of a U.S. publicly traded company gives you a unique insight that only a CEO of a U.S. publicly traded company can have into an order book and into the way market makers function with your order book, guided by the SEC and FINRA. So we understand liquidity. Liquidity happens at higher price levels in many different cases. Next, we'll move on to strategy. We are still looking for headquarters in Berkeley. We don't have that locked down yet, We have a few leads. It's going to happen quickly because it must happen quickly. And then Datasets as a platform. There have been discussions related to whether or not VectorspaceAI is a platform company or just a product company. Datasets are not a product. Datasets represent a platform. For example, Twitter relies on an entire dataset or sets of datasets, groups of datasets that provide an API experience that entire companies used to build themselves from, found themselves on. When you look at API services, entire companies are built upon API services provided by most companies in the world. When you look at a data set, it's not just a matter of an API into a data set. Data sets result in correlation matrices. They result in relationship networks, graph networks. They result in all kinds of visualization products you can put on top of a data set. This is why companies like Tableau exist. Tableau exists to sit on top of a data set or a series of data sets that can be visualized, where new hypotheses are generated, new insights are extracted. And that's just with a single data set. And we have millions of data sets. Data sets are the platform that power all AI and ML. And that total addressable market is the largest. And next we'll talk about space biosciences just for a second, and the rationale. Why is it that we are in space biosciences? Well, we're qualified. We have the skill sets to do that. The skill sets to execute on networks of data engineering pipelines, bioinformatics labs, and of course scientific staff, wet labs, making discoveries, generating new hypotheses, accelerating discoveries. Everything that we contribute to in space biosciences, everything that we discover, every new hypothesis, every new visualization, that translates to all of life sciences. That's part of the reason why we're here. We can monetize what we discover in space biosciences across the board. And there'll be more on that in the supplemental engineering call. We also have a team that we're putting together to produce a space industry report. And in that report, and real quick, we'll just mention that if you look at a pie chart of the space industry, sure, you can have resource exploitation happening, you can have lunar bases establishing, you can have satellite technology happening, launches, everything. But the largest portion of that pie chart will be taken up by space biosciences, and that's another reason we're here. And that also leads to space biosciences contracts and grants, which we are pursuing as a form of revenue. So our focus will remain on consequential revenue, and a lot of that, we anticipate, will be derived from our retail strategy. We have a supplemental engineering call, as mentioned, attached to this call, so feel free to give that a listen. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Thanks for joining.